There's a guy in Chapel, Nebraska I used to know. He had a wife who was very, very loud, a very angry woman. Or maybe she was just like that. Who knows? Anyway, let's get into the story. So, this guy was telling me about his wife, about how when they got married, he was one of those guys who was completely infatuated with his wife. He hung on every word that she said, remembered everything that she liked. If she told him that she liked something, he remembered it for the rest of his life. Now, if he liked something, she didn't remember. My light went out. I'll have to plug it back in. It's attached to my telephone. I got more than one. That's the telephone right there. All right, so let's get back to the story about Chapel, Nebraska. So this feller had been married more than twice as long as I'd been alive by this point. He'd been married a very long time. And he was telling me that their marriage was real rocky at the start because there was something about women that he didn't understand. Of course, he was also fighting in a war, but whatever. So he was telling me that when he'd talk to her, when she'd tell him a story and he was listening, well, she'd get bored. She would get bored real quickly and real easily. And that created a lot of problems and a lot of contention. So what he learned to do was to pretend that he didn't hear her. Some of y'all might think you know where this is going. That's actually what made their marriage easier. If she thought he wasn't listening, then she had something to bitch about. If that wasn't what she was bitching about, then she'd make stuff up. So he gave her that. The, okay, I'll pretend that I didn't hear you thing. Strange. So let's talk about a woman I know in Chapel, Nebraska. She got married to this feller, and, he and I got along. I didn't really like his views on women. I still don't, matter of fact. So one day I'm over at their house, and so his wife is there, and I tell her a joke, and it wasn't a good joke. It was a joke that I had heard from her husband, and after telling the joke, I was never allowed in her house again. See, one of the things that we got a bad habit of is keeping things from the people that we shouldn't. Often that gets innocent people harmed as well. A lot of times you ask people for help and then you talk about how you had to do it all yourself after a lot of people have helped you. Not just helped you, but helped you in the way that you're asking. When it comes to turning in a crime with a victim, some victims are not going to be heard. If they don't have any money, they're a lot less likely to be heard. If it's a male, they are much less likely to be heard. If they are disabled, they are much less likely to be heard. When you want to help those categories, you don't help us. You generalize and talk about what we should be doing in your opinion, and your opinion is not based on fact. It's not based on our situation. It's based on your assumptions. You want to assume your husband isn't listening. Well, after getting nagged at for years and years and years, he might not be listening. He might be fed up with your stuff. You might be praying to the good Lord Almondy cheese and rice to take him, please. The kind of people that you have in your life and that you reward, and that's what I'm going to call it because that's what it is. When you reward somebody with your time who is abusive to you, and the people who are not abusive to you, you only have time for after you've been abused by somebody else. You only have time for those people when you want them to help you move out of your place. When you want the help to pay for the U-Haul. You want that help. When we give you that help and then you talk about how you did it all yourself, that's like kicking us in the teeth. I helped a lot of people move out of real crappy situations. I've also noticed that in most of those situations, well, the woman goes back to the man who's abusive. That's what happens in most of these situations. And I'm not talking about just once or twice. I'm talking about how many of these women seem to have a constant need for drama in their life. You live with a dude, you drive him fucking nuts. He doesn't want anything to do with you anymore and he kicks you out of the house. All of a sudden, you're running around town telling people that he's into little boys and he wears girls' underpants. He's a homosexual. I don't know what Homer's got to do with it, but whatever. You get here in many of my videos, people calling me horrible, horrible names. The horrible names aren't the problem. It's people putting their hands on me over that crap. Thinking that calling me a homosexual makes it okay to assault me. Or calling me the N-word makes it okay to assault me. Calling me a retard makes it okay to assault me. I realize I'm not the good-looking feller that all these women are complaining that they can't find a man. I know I'm not the man they're looking for. I'm not rich. I don't make six figures. I've heard what many of these women are asking for, and it's not realistic. It's also not for me. If I had the money, I wouldn't spend it on a wife. I'd spend it on my friends. There's things that are more important to me. Now, when I had a choice, when I was 21, I had a choice between my drugs or my friends and family. My drug of choice was alcohol, by the way. I chose my friends and family, and they chose their drugs. Many of those people wanted to pass judgment on me later on for speaking up about the abuse. Abuse specifically because of their drug use. I know plenty of people who do drugs who don't go run around abusing people. And I know plenty of people who are sober who are very abusive. I also know that most of the people that I went to high school with that have kids don't have kids because they planned on having kids. They don't have kids because they decided to go to college, get a good job, get a good husband or a good wife, and live a good life. No, primarily it was because they were on drugs and alcohol and had some random sex with somebody. Seems the most abusive guys that I know end up being the ones that women throw themselves at the most. One feller I knew in Chapel, Nebraska assaulted a lot of different women, and none of them ever wanted to call the cops when they were assaulted. They just wanted to get out of there. And then they ran around talking about how abusive he was. And then he'd hook up with another woman I knew. And I'd warn them. I'd be like, he was abusive to his last girlfriend. Well, they don't want to hear that. He's good looking. Plus, he's got a house. Yeah, so I mean, they can just move right in kind of situation. And then later on, they want to rescue. And he's one of those guys where he's good looking, he's got options. So, it's not a situation for him where he's going to continue letting these women come back after he's smacked them around a bit. And they've gone around town saying he smacks them around. No, he don't want them back. He'll get another one, no big deal. I got tired of women telling me about this dude, because none of them ever wanted to turn him in. They just wanted to complain about him. Now, I helped out about half of these women as far as getting out of that situation, getting them moved. And half may not seem like that much, but most of these women had somebody else that would help them out. Most of these women had some other family member or friend in the immediate vicinity that would help them, and that's who helped them. If they didn't have somebody like that, then yes, they came to me because, well, I'd help out pretty much anybody. I grew up in a shitty situation as a kid. As an adult, well, my life has not improved. I take that back a little bit. My childhood was hell. Parts of it. There are things that people don't try to do to me anymore. I'm just too big. Too loud. So, we got a lot of situations where we get to listen to generalizations. Men this and women that. And gays this and straights that. It's stupid. Now you also get to see on my channel, I get on and I trash on any group. Equal opportunity, right? When I see somebody claiming to represent women and they get on and talk about how horrible men are, I'll get on and talk about how horrible women are. That's equality. Do you want equality? Equality is that if you step up to a man, you might have to fight like a man. That's equality. But we don't have equality. What we have is special rights for certain people. We've got the laws, but the laws don't matter when you've got bias involved, especially when there's so much hatred towards men, so much hatred towards the homeless. And then, of course, all of you know that you can target somebody that is a little bit different because people don't want to listen to them. People don't want to believe them. People are going to get bored. Oh, he's just crazy. Oh, she's just crazy. That's what makes us vulnerable. Is that when we're harmed, nobody fucking cares. Not your wife, not your husband. And none of these bullshit head games that you want to play because you think that your emotions are the same as an actual fact. No, that's not how it works. If emotionally you think that 2 plus 2 equals blue, well, okay, it's all rhymey-dimey all the timey. Quite Dr. Seussian, but realistically, 2 plus 2 is 4. Just because you emotionally feel something different today doesn't mean that you are correct. It doesn't mean that your emotions are correct. I know plenty of women who are capable of being very reasonable. When you encounter problems is when it comes to accountability. All of a sudden, she doesn't understand the English language and will try to twist and contort every word that you say into some sort of an insult. Let me give you an example of this. And this is from some young women, very, very, very young, in Wyoming. It's because we start teaching them very young. These young women wanted to pretend that they were not being fed and had not been fed. Now, me and a woman named Rihanna were supposed to be working together, and then these kids were basically dropped off on Rihanna in the middle of the situation. Rihanna's an alcoholic. She just kept on smacking them kids. Well, that's not a happening thing, and I tried to turn it in repeatedly. One of the things that Rihanna kept on doing with those girls, though, is trying to paint me out to be a bad guy when she would smack them around, and I'd try to turn it in. Us girls got to stick together. Us girls got to stick together, and so on, and so on, and so on. One moment. Anyway, those young women wanted to claim that they were not being fed and that their mom and her boyfriend were not feeding them either. And I said, as big as you girls are, you were definitely getting fed. And of course, they wanted to grossly reinterpret that to, Sean called us fat! Sean called us fat! No, I didn't call them fat, I called them liars. The police showed up on 3 different occasions about the abuse there from Rihanna. And all 3 of those times, it was about those girls not being fed. Well, Rihanna spent her money on making sure those girls were fed. And Rihanna went without eating herself because basically she had a choice between alcohol or food, and she chose alcohol. And, as I brought up earlier, those people tend to be abusive. So, even though those girls did wrong things, they outright lied more than once. The fact is, the abuse they were going through was very real. The person who was actually abusing them was abusing them in a different way. Rihanna was physically assaulting those girls, not refusing to allow them to eat. Very big difference. But despite the fact that I was the only one in the whole situation who was trying to do the right thing and who was being honest about it, I'm the one who got punished the most. On the bright side, at least those girls ended up eventually getting safe. Although, because Rihanna was a woman, she didn't even get a slap on the wrist. They charged her with child abuse, but then they dropped the charges. I believe in doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Whether or not somebody has money shouldn't have anything to do with whether or not they get justice. Whether or not somebody is good looking to you should not be the deciding factor in whether or not they get justice. And if we're only your friend when you want something, we're not friends. I'm just somebody that you take advantage of when you want something. But do you ever return the favor? If you make a deal, do you keep your end of it? Most of the guys that I know that made a deal with me kept their end of the bargain until the situation where Natalie was killed. That does change things. Most of the women that I know, even if they did promise to help how I needed, would change their minds once I'd done what they wanted. All of a sudden, they could be in control of somebody who is in a desperate situation. When these women realized that they could try to control somebody else, they fucking jumped right on that power wagon. Being lied to, being lied about. I mean, I had women who were threatening me that they'd claim I did something horrible if I didn't do manual labor for them. Like, shit, lady. You don't have to threaten me with anything. You can literally ask me. It's that easy. When Shauna needed help, she asked me for help and I helped her move out. Pretty easy. Same thing with Rebecca. Neither one of these women treated me like I owed it to them. Both of them were grateful. Neither one of them tried to offer me sexual favors after the fact to give me payment. For me, a thank you is good enough. But then there's also the situation where if we help you out and you're in love with this guy, you can't help it. You left him because he beat you. You needed help moving out. You needed a lot of favors, and you got those favors. You got those favors out of people like me. And then after I've done those favors to help you get out of an unsafe environment, you get lonely, and within 2 weeks, you're right back with that dude. And not only are you back with that dude, then you're blaming the people that you went to for help. Maybe you blame me. Maybe you blame your mom for telling you you need to get out of there. Maybe you blame your sister for having her and her husband come and help you move out of there. I've seen it many, many, many ways. You got out of there because you didn't want him to beat you up again. But when you go back, well, it really wasn't that bad. You change your story about what the abuse was. Well, then all of the people that came to your rescue, they feel like they've been taken advantage of and manipulated. Like, does that feel good to be manipulated into helping somebody who says later on that, oh no, he didn't really beat me up. No, I did that bruising to myself. Well, yeah, it's going to be hard to believe you next time, the whole cry wolf thing. Tammy Mensher was married to Christopher Tapp, and she didn't speak up about the physical abuse that she endured. No, she didn't say anything about it until years later when she was getting a divorce, and then she went around and said that that wasn't true, and then later came back and said that it was true. And, you know, emotionally, I just can't trust you. When you do things like that, yeah, it's an emotional thing for us. I mean, not only did we help somebody out, hoping to get them safe, but they went back to their abuser and turned on the spigot for us taking the abuse. When you go back to that guy and you're not our friend while you're with him, But then when he hits you again, you want to be our friend for a couple of weeks, and then you go back to him. You just keep on doing this. No, we're not going to help you out anymore. We're helping you out how you're asking, and we're being victimized for it. As far as friendships go, is it possible for men and women to be friends without being sexually attracted to each other? Yes, absolutely. Just not with most of you. Most of you are completely incapable. The majority of my good friends ditched me over temporary penis or temporary vagina. They found somebody who was attractive, who had a shitty attitude, but they were attractive. Oh, I don't like your friends. Well, that's fine. You don't have to. But then again, if you were going to abandon your friends because somebody's having sex with you, they're not your friends, and you don't get to go back to them and treat them like they owe you something after you abandoned them for some temporary penis. You don't get to pretend that the people who supported you and protected you are somehow horrible people who are to blame for you getting beaten on after you asked them for help because you were being beaten on. That's insane. I don't owe it to you to rescue you. I don't owe it to you to help you out. When I help you out the way that you've asked, understand that when I ask for help, that help is the same the other way around. And don't ever, ever believe a woman when she says that she doesn't know how to turn something in. Ever. If there's a woman in America who doesn't know how to turn in abuse, well, she definitely wasn't born here and definitely doesn't speak English yet. That's the thing, is that the help that we need, oftentimes it's the same help that we're providing for women. But women are never going to provide that help for us. You already know that if you need help from an electrician, you better have a friend who's an electrician or be an electrician yourself, because your girlfriend and or wife is more than likely not going to know how to do it. Same thing with roofing. Same thing with any other maintenance that needs to be done around the house. If she knows how to do that stuff, good. Good. Then she doesn't need you. Then she might actually be there with you because she cares about you. We're not going to get the help from women that women expect from us. Not ever. If your spouse is beating on you, she's going to tell you a story about herself instead. Or she's going to talk trash about that other person. Try to tell you the things that you want to hear. When you're in a shitty relationship, you want to hear that it's not your fault. Oh, it's all the man's fault. It's all the man's fault. Or it's all the woman's fault if the man's a friend of yours, right? It's all her fault. Oh, he didn't do anything wrong.